My name is Rebecca Allison. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am the program manager with ALTEC at the University of Colorado Boulder, and my pronouns are she, her. This is an ALTEC faculty workshop. ALTEC is all about languages and the faculty, you, who teach them. We provide a variety of programs, resources, and support to faculty teaching languages, as well as the students who are learning those languages. Please connect with me, visit us online, and subscribe to our mailing list to learn about ALTEC services. Today's workshop is called Foster Engagement with Flipgrid and Nearpod, and is presented by Audra McCorkle and Dr. Rocío Rubio Moirón. Audra holds a master's degree in teaching American Sign Language and teaches ASL courses at ALTEC. She was born deaf and uses ASL for her entire life. Rocío has a doctorate degree in Spanish, is from Spain, and teaches Spanish language courses at ALTEC. Audra and Rocío also teach at other institutions and instill a passion for languages and culture in all that they do. We thank them for joining us today to share how Nearpod and Flipgrid can be used to foster engagement in the language classroom. We ask that you remain muted while our hosts present, and then use the chat to ask questions. We will have the time at the end of each of their presentations to discuss your questions. With that, I will turn it over to Rocío, who will teach us about the power of Nearpod, and I'm going to drop a link in the chat.
Thank you, Rebecca, and thank you everybody for joining us today on this workshop. I can share the link to Nearpod. It's on the chat. So you can click on it. It will ask you to type your name. You can use it to go back and play with these features later as if you were a student. What I'm going to do today is to use PowerPoint. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to do that so all of you can see how Nearpod works, and we can include it in the recording. But again, for a normal class, I will use Nearpod, but it's just a little bit more difficult to go back and forth. And some parts of my presentation will not be on the recording, so that's what I'm using, the Nearpod today. But this is what I want to talk about during my presentation. First, explain a little bit what Nearpod is, give some reasons, at least my reasons to use Nearpod, and show you some of the activities. We're not going to have time to discuss all of the activities, but I included an example on the presentation that I share with you through this link. And we can even discuss a little bit about the difference between a free account versus a paid account. So what is Nearpod? For me, Nearpod is a basic tool. It's a fundamental tool for my online classes. I've been teaching with ALTEC online classes for 3 years now. And honestly, I'm not sure if I will know how to do it without Nearpod. It is a digital tool that allows you to create interactive presentations while you have all the control all the time about what the students are doing. It is super easy to create the activities if you have presentations on Google Slides or PowerPoint. It takes seconds to upload them to Nearpod and to transform them into engaging activities. And that's what I really like about Nearpod. So let's start with this. This is how it looks like. This is my my page on Nearpod. So this is what it looks like when you want to share a link, like I did. So your students have access to Nearpod. Basically, the link that I share is this one. Student pays, so you have control of the presentation. When I'm teaching, what I do is I generate a link for a live session. So that gives me control of the presentation. I can move the presentation where I want, so I can always know what the students are doing and make sure that nobody's lost because we are all in the same slide. So, and this is how it looked like. I took screenshots of the different activities and the different features that I want to show you on Nearpod, again, to make sure that we have time to discuss all this. So this is how it looks like when I'm using Nearpod in a class. Basically, I split my screen in two, and half of the screen will be for the Nearpod and the other half will be for Zoom. And those are the two tools that I use for an online class, and just those two, Nearpod and Zoom, because it makes it easier if the students don't have to go from one tool to another. So everything is in Nearpod. And again, they are never lost on what we are doing. So I split the screen in two. I always have control of what they are doing. And again, this is what it looks like when they are working. This is what I see. Let me show you what you can do. Well, you can include regular slides. Again, if you already have a presentation on PowerPoint or Google Slides, it takes seconds to upload them to Nearpod. For an activity like this, which is conversational activity, what I like about this is that when I send the students to a breakout room, they can see this because it's in their Nearpod. So you can do this if you share the PowerPoint ahead of time, if you put it on Canvas or something like that, but then you depend on the students knowing where we are all the time. Well, here you don't have that problem. Again, if you have control of the presentation, they know where we are and everybody's on the same page. And again, when they go to a breakout room, they still can see this. They still can see the Nearpod. You can also include different activities, and I'm gonna talk about some of them, again, not all, just some of the activities that you can include. One of them is videos. You can upload videos to Nearpod, and you can edit those videos to include questions, for example, to help them with comprehension, and a lot of different questions, multiple choice, fill in the blank. You can even include open-ended questions that you can use to discuss after the video. For a class, I never upload a video that is more than 3 minutes, because that allows me to include a few activities in there, again, to help them with comprehension, and it still gives me time at the end to discuss open-ended questions, for example. All those blue points that you see in here will be the different activities that I included in here. If you are familiar with Play Pause It or Edpuzzle, it's pretty similar. But again, the advantage of doing this on Nearpod is that the students do not have to leave Nearpod at any point. Everything that we are doing, it's on the same page. And while they are watching the video, I can click on the different activities and I can get their responses. I can see if they are responding correctly or if they are making mistakes. I can see if they are not responding. So what I do at the end is that if I see that they are having problems with one particular activity or one part of the video, we can always play it again and discuss it together and see why they were having problems with that. Another activity will be the gallery show. And this is great, for example, for role play situation. As I told you before, when you share a link for a live session, you have control over the presentation. So the students cannot go back and forth because you have control of that. But if you include an activity like this, a gallery show, this allows you to create a mini presentation inside the presentation. So for example, here I have included 3 different slides. The first one will be for role A, the second one will be for role B, and the third one will be for some questions that they have to answer together after discussing role A and role role B, the questions that they have, role A and role B. So when they are working on this, I can make sure that they are only working on this activity because they can only navigate through those 3 slides that I'm giving them here on the left side. So again, they are never lost. They know that we are here and they cannot move forward. Let's see what else. This activity is great to review vocabulary. For example, if you want a quick activity at the beginning of the class to review with vocabulary, this is to match images and words. So it looks like this, pretty easy. You will upload some images and the words that goes with those images. The only thing they have to do is to click on them, the image and the word that goes with it, and then if they get it right, it disappears. If you want, you can give them instructions. It allows you to do that. Honestly, I only do this, include instructions, the first time that they use this activity because it's very intuitive. And that's another thing that I like about Nearpod, that you do not spend time explaining how it works because it's easy to understand. It just takes one class for them to get familiar with Nearpod. And again, after the first time, you do not need to include instructions, but it gives you that option if you want. You can also put a timer on those activities. If you want them to spend a minute or 30 seconds or whatever it is, you can control that. You can add a timer, and after that, they do not have time to continue working on this activity. Another one would be the collaborative board. And I use this for both. Well, I use a lot of those activities for both my online and also my face-to-face classes. I don't remember the last time that I used paper for my classes, because now what I use is this, the Nearpod. It's more organized, it's more clean, and honestly, I think that it's more fun for the students to use it. So with the collaborative board, what I will do, there are different things that you can do, but this is just an example. You can assign them an activity in which they have to interview each other and take notes. And when they are done with this part, you can just ask them to write a sentence based on the information that they got from their partners. And it would look like this. You can use this to work on spelling mistakes, or for example, if you're working with the verb gustar, for example, grammar mistakes that are common mistakes, you can easily see them with this tool, and it helps the students to see their mistakes. I think that they learn better when they can correct their own mistakes. In a face-to-face class, for example, I will use this in a similar way as you use Kahoot, for example, to review vocabulary before an exam. For example, I put them in groups. I ask them to think about 4 words, and usually they try hard and they try to find the most difficult words, which is great. So they think about 4 or 5 words. They have to say it in English, and then their classmates in other groups have to type it as fast as they can, and it appears in there. So again, it will be like this, and I give them points if they get it right. So it's very fun to review for an exam, for example. The drawing activity. This is the one that I use the most because it allows you to do a lot of different things. You can just create a white background and ask them to type or to draw whatever you want. For example, if you want to work with prepositions, you can ask them to draw their room, for example, or their living room, and then you can ask them to work in an activity in which they have to describe their partner's room based on the drawing, things like that. But usually, this is what I do. It allows you to upload an image and put it as a background. And then you can do whatever you want in there. This one, for example, will be to review vocabulary. So the student will have to identify the different past times. And what I like about this is that when they are working on it, this is what I see. I see all my students' work. I can see in real time what they are typing. And if they make mistakes, for example, if they're working in groups or in pairs, and I send them to a breakout room, I can make sure that they are working, even if they are in a breakout room. But also I can see if they make mistakes, and I can go to their breakout room and give them feedback, individual feedback in the moment. I can also see if they are not working. For example, here I can see that Turner is not working on the activity. So I can go to Turner's breakout room and ask, what is the problem? Why are you not working on this? And help him with whatever problem he might have. Again, if I click in, this is how I see it, but if I click in individual drawings, I can see it with more detail. So this is what I was telling you. I can see, for example, that Joey is making a mistake, a spelling mistake here. So I will go to his breakout room and help him with this. Another thing that you can do is you can upload a comic strip and ask them to complete the dialogue. You can even combine activities, a comic strip in which they will have to complete the dialogue and then write a paragraph. And again, I can see what they are typing. I can go to the breakout rooms and help them while they are doing that. Then usually I project them or I share them with everybody so they can see what their classmates have done. Another activity that you can do is upload a dialogue, for example. This would be for a fill in the blank. And those are the options that they have. They can open a text box and just type in there their answers. They can underline, they can draw, they can even upload images if they want. Again, it allows you to do a lot of different things. But for something like this, you can ask them to type, or there is another activity that you can do, a fill in the blank, in which they do not have to type. They only have to drag and drop the answers to the right place. And once they are done completing the text, they just hit submit, and it gives them the answers that they got right and the answers that they got wrong. It doesn't tell them which ones. So you can ask them to go back and try to figure out what the mistakes were, or you can discuss it together as a class. Quizzes. With quizzes, again, there are a lot of different things that you can do. You can create questions for multiple choice. Easy. Just write a question, give them different answers, and they have to select the right one. But you can also be a little bit more creative, and instead of base your quiz on a simple question, you can add an image. You can record your own voice, for example, and make them recognize the question, for example, or you can even include a short video in here and base your question on the video. This is an example, for example, of what you can do with an image. You can give them an image and base your question on that. What is Paula doing? She's closing the window, okay? And if they click in the image, it will be bigger. And while they are doing that, while they are taking the quiz, this is what I see. I can see all their answers. And for example, for something like this, I can see that they are having problems with question number 1 and question number 2, but not with number 3. Well, then at the end, when they finish taking the quiz, we can review together number 1 and number 2. So I do not waste time. If I know that they do not have problems with some of the questions, we do not discuss them. So this gives me immediate feedback, so I know how to adjust my lesson plan based on their results. Now, what you can do with a paid account, what I show you now, until now, it was what you can do with a free account. With a paid account, there are other activities that you can include. This one that I really love, the drag and drop, it's only with a paid account. And again, you will upload an image in there, whatever you want, and you can give them options on the left side. Here, for example, I wanted to work with stem changing verbs. Well, they need to use those vowels that you have on they have on the left side. So I will give them unlimited copies of those vowels, and they will just move them to the right place. Again, while they are doing this, I can see what they are doing, and I can go to their breakout rooms and give them feedback. Or you can do something a little bit more creative, something like this. You can give them a map, for example, if you're reviewing the weather, and instead of words, you can give them images. It's super easy to upload those images. You could just find them on Google, and they appear in there. So they will move those images. You can limit the number of copies that they have. They will complete the whole map with the weather and also with activities that they can do. And the next step will be go to a breakout room and discuss your map with your partner, things like that. I give them a few questions, and the answers are always going to be different because since they were creating their own map, it's going to be different for each student. So you can do this several times if you want. You can assign different partners for the same activity. Finally, Flipgrid. Audra is gonna discuss about Flipgrid. Flipgrid is an amazing tool that you can integrate into Nearpod. You can create the assignment directly on Nearpod. So again, it's great because the students do not need to go through different tools to do this. And that's all what I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rocío. That was amazing. I am shocked at how powerful this tool is. It's got so much in it. As I was listening, things that stood out to me, the fact that you can make interactive presentations, that your PowerPoint can just be brought into Nearpod. It sounds really amazing. That you can have students still see Nearpod while they're in their breakout room. I know that as an instructor, that's oftentimes a limitation that we face is we've got all this great content in our PowerPoint and maybe we didn't have a chance yet to upload it to the learning management system, Canvas, Blackboard, D2L that we're using. And then our students go in the breakout room and then they can't see what we've created. So that seems really powerful in that way. I love that the students can answer questions within videos and that it's really multi-layered in how you can get feedback from your students. You can see students where they need support, which is fantastic. It's very intuitive to use from the student perspective. It seems like there's a lot of different variety with the activities, and you're able to see their work in real time so that you can give them that automatic feedback that's so critical, especially in these remote learning spaces where we may not be able to walk right up to that student's table, that group discussion, hear what's happening. So I think this is really powerful what you've described. Thank you so much. I know that we have some questions in the chat and I'd love to give you the chance to answer what's come in. So the first one was asking about the free account. Can you please provide just a little bit more information of what does the free account offer and perhaps what are the limitations of that?
Yes, let's see. I'm going to share my screen again. I was not sure if I had time for this, so I just put it on my last slide. Basically, those are the difference. The main difference is not even with the activities that you can do, because the most important one would be the one that I showed you, the drag and drop. But the main difference will be with storage. Depending on the account, there are 3 different accounts: a free account, the gold account, which is the one that I'm using for ALTEC, and the platinum. So depending on the account that you will have more storage. Just to give you an idea, as Rebecca said, I'm also teaching in other institutions, and I'm using free accounts for the other institutions. So if you create a presentation, if you have a semester, like 15 weeks, you are not gonna have enough space on your Nearpod to have presentations for the whole semester. So what I do is that I always have a copy on PowerPoint. And then when I do not have more space in my Nearpod, I just delete some of the presentations. But it allows you to store around 15 presentations. If you're uploading videos and things like that, it's going to be less. But if you're just uploading presentations with some of the activities that I showed you, not the videos, but the other ones, it will allow you to store maybe 15 presentations with 20, 25 slides in each. And when you don't have more space, you just delete some of them. And again, if you already have it on PowerPoint, it doesn't take more than 10, 15 minutes to create the presentations again.
Great, and we do have a few more questions in the chat for you specifically. The first one is, how do you split your screen while you are teaching so you see the class and the slides simultaneously?
Well, I think that depends on, it depends on if you're using an Apple or PC, I can show you how I do it on mine. So let me do this again. This will be my screen now. So I will do this. Wait, sorry. Just will do this. I will put this will be the Nearpod, but it doesn't matter if it's the Nearpod or the PowerPoint or whatever it is, and you just play with this. And on the other side, it will be the Zoom, and you will do exactly the same. You can move it to adjust it to make it bigger or smaller. In an Apple, I know that it was a little bit different, but I don't know how to do it in an Apple, but it's similar to this. With the PC, it's just this. With the Apple, I'm not sure exactly how it is, but it's something similar. That's it.
Thanks for sharing. And I think, yes, as a Mac user, I can say it's probably very similar that you have 2 windows that are smaller than your whole desktop, and you just make them smaller to fit on the screen. I know that I have my Zoom set up so that it does have my participants and my screen share separate. That can be another helpful tool in Zoom.
So imagine that, I'm sorry, Rebecca. So imagine that this is the Nearpod. So I will have it in half of my screen, and I just will be clicking here to move the presentation. It also, one thing that I did not mention is that with the Nearpod, as an instructor, you can skip some of the slides. So it will appear here, it will appear the whole presentation, and you can move from one slide to another. Imagine that you are on slide 3 and you want to go to slide 15. You don't have to go one by one. You can just find slide 15 here, click on it, and that's the one that is shared with the students immediately.
That's great. Thank you so much, Rocío. We do have a few more questions about Nearpod in the chat, but in the interest of time, I'm going to switch us over to learning about Flipgrid, and then hopefully at the end of the presentation, we'll have time to revisit some of those questions that came in, or Rocío, maybe you can type some answers in the chat to the questions that have come in. All right, so I'd like to introduce Audra, and I'm going to spotlight now so that they can present.
Okay, excellent. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is staying warm there in Colorado. Now what we're going to do is discuss the application Flipgrid, or FG for short. You might be asking yourself, what is Flipgrid? Well, it is an app and also a website that you can download. When a student is making a video, perhaps a receptive or expressive video, they can use the Flipgrid. They also can have a video discussion if you want as faculty. So the benefits of Flipgrid is that before 2020, I was contemplating a free app that could teach and show my students at the same time and allow them to videotape themselves and record themselves to be able to use American Sign Language so they can watch themselves and give themselves self-feedback as far as their process. Flipgrid then was released at that time. That was perfect because it provides a visual feedback mechanism. ASL itself is a very visual language, and it can't be something that's typed. You know, it's not like English with English grammar or sentence structure. So one student is able to use Flipgrid to record themselves, and then I can provide them feedback to show where they made mistakes in the video, and also to show them how to mitigate errors and correct their grammar. And in the year 2020, we decided to use Flipgrid. Didn't know about it at first when it was released. It is a free app, which is very cool, very nice. I know there have been updates to the app since 2020, and there are more features involved in Flipgrid now than it was in the initial release. Now, first of all, of course, you need a webcam. That's one of the requirements for Flipgrid. And most everyone's phone or laptop computer has a webcam. Also, you need the actual computer. Now, when we use Flipgrid, it's possible that in class, you have a very large class, and maybe you don't have enough time to go to every single speaker, every single student's presentation due to time constraints. There's also internet issues. Perhaps you have a technology issue with internet issues. And so you can use Flipgrid to replace live presentations in that way. Sometimes a student may not be comfortable providing a presentation in person or on Zoom, either way. And we, of course, understand that completely. At times, perhaps their video camera isn't working or the webcam isn't working during a live presentation. And so you can use Flipgrid as a plan B, as a backup plan for them. Now I would like to share my screen, and I would like to show you all what the Flipgrid homepage looks like. Okay, let me see here. I'm just looking for one other feature. Okay, excellent. And so you will create your own account, and that's easy. That's self-explanatory, how to create an account. And then you're going to make groups. Your groups could be level 1, level 2, and so forth. If you're teaching at different schools or different programs, you can also use the grouping mechanism to differentiate between schools or institutions. And I'll show you that now. This is just a made-up example just for a demonstration's sake. All right, I'm done there. You can also pick or select which link you would like to use. If you'd like to share a link, I always would like to use the feature of sharing a link, and then I can copy that link to Canvas, or you can also email the link out, whichever is easiest for you and your students. And so now they add QR codes as well. And so they didn't have that before in the initial release in 2020, but now it's very popular, as you've noticed all around. You can do a QR code. And so that way the student can use their cell phone, their smartphone, to capture the QR code as a picture and open up their options there. Or you can also send the link out in various ways and formats here, as you can see. Now, once you've set up your group, if you have a co-teacher who co-teaches with you, you can also add their name to the group as well. And here you can add them there. So now your group has already been initiated or created. I want to show you all my example. And so now you can have a weekly topic of discussion. I tend to teach by the week by week basis, and then we'll have activities, which is quote unquote their homework for the week. You can also have reviews and say, do you remember this content from the previous class session? And also you can have your expressive videos uploaded here. You can call it week 1, or you can say, introduce yourself as a topic, and you'll type that in manually. If you don't want to type in a description, you can also record myself, or I can record myself in a video and put the video in lieu of typing out a description. You can also establish a time limit. I tend to use around a 2-minute time limit. And that's nice because you don't want any elongated or exaggerated lengthwise videos. And so you can limit the students there as far as the time. You can also allow the students to use this for practice. So for example purposes, this is an introductory video. I'm just introducing myself in this recording. It says, hello, my name is Audra. And so you see I signed my name and I spelled it out, A-U-D-R-A. My name is Audra. And so when you're providing feedback to the students, the cool part about Flipgrid is that you can provide feedback and you can make it public or private. Totally up to you. You can provide feedback in English and type out actual sentences, or you can record yourself using feedback. And I tend to use both personally. And so again, you can make that feedback to the student public or private. Now, most of the time, the majority of the time, I do make a feedback public because I notice there's common mistakes among several students on the same module. And so one student might say, if they look at another student's feedback and say, oh, I made that same mistake. And so it's very helpful to many students. But you can also make that feedback private. And here's an example of me providing feedback to myself. And so you would say my name. And so you can see that I changed it. I put down change your hand shape, right? Not me, but my. And so I'm changing the hand shape. So in the feedback, you can identify what the student made a mistake with as far as errors, and then provide the proper example. Let's see here. Looking for my next example, one moment. Oh, yes. Now, I noticed that there are backgrounds or filters now that have been added to Flipgrid. And so a lot of students, love very colorful backgrounds. It's not necessarily my preference. Doesn't necessarily agree with ASL all the time to have a lot of colors or brilliant colors. But if a student wants to have a blurred background to see the face and facial expressions better, that's allowed. Also, you can have a nice black background. Sometimes students do not have the appropriate background. And so they can they're able through Flipgrid to make a filter or to establish one digitally, which is very nice, and very nice feature that they've just added. Okay, I'm thinking of some other features that I might want to show you. Yes, with the voicing component, I noticed there's a feature that makes your voice sound different than normal. Again, ASL is a visual language, so we don't really focus on voice much, but there is a voice component feature to Flipgrid as well. Now, at times, I will send a video to a student or to the class, for example, to a coda, or I'm sorry, the movie coda. We might have a discussion about that. The coda means children of deaf adults. And so I'll ask the students, please type out or sign a response in a form of a discussion, and so that the students can see each other and they can notice each other's responses and build off each other and learn the language that way. So that's a really very useful tool. That's very novel and very cool. And again, they provide all of these features for free. So really, it's very simple and easy to use. And some of my students have the app of Flipgrid on their phone. I tend personally not to use it. I prefer to use the desktop version or my laptop version, but I've heard it's very easy to use on your phone as well through the cell phone app. There's also captioning. And I'm assuming they're going to set up captioning, which would be very nice. Because I've noticed sometimes when the student's talking, they're going to try to set up a feature where Flipgrid can capture the captioning. And okay, here we are. And so that would be all. A little bit of a freezing on my end, the interpreter speaking here. So I asked her to repeat the last part. And so she's saying, yes, students can use their voice. And I noticed that the Flipgrid will notice that the auto detect the students using their voice, and they also try to provide captioning, which, of course, ASL, American Sign Language, does not use voice. And so the captioning will appear to allow us to also provide feedback to the student that way. Flipgrid is a huge accessibility tool for those who are deaf and also for deaf teachers who use American Sign Language. And I believe that is it for me. Stop sharing my screen.
Thank you so much, Audra. This was fantastic. We do have a few questions in the chat. I just wanted to, mention what I have learned about Flipgrid. It's clear that it allows students to provide video feedback outside of the classroom time, which is fantastic. It's completely free. I love that about this tool so much. I like that you can use a link or a QR code to share that with the students, and that you can provide public or private feedback to the students. I think it's so beneficial that students can find what you're saying to everyone. I know that if one student has a question, there's going to be at least 5 more who have the same question. So that's really fantastic that they can learn from each other, and it's not limited in that way. Different backgrounds, I'm sure that could be really fun if a student is presenting about the beach and they wanted to put a beach background behind them. So I think that's a really fun aspect of it. And of course, the fact that students can see each other and respond to each other outside of class time. I can't imagine a more perfect tool if you're teaching an asynchronous course where you don't have live sessions. This seems like a perfect fit for that kind of format. So we have some questions in the chat. The first one is there a time limit to the recordings, and do you know what that is?
In terms of the recordings, I think the limit is 10 minutes. So if I sign, it's about 10 minutes, but for the responses, I want to say the limit is about 5 minutes. I typically just keep it very short and simple.
Great. And then another question, if you assign a Flipgrid activity to a class of 15, are all students able to see each other's submissions, similar to a discussion page on Canvas?
Oh, yes, they can.
And we had another comment in the chat that it's so nice that you can offer feedback on student videos and invite them to self-correct their work.
Yes.
And we have another comment in the chat. You can set the settings to allow or not allow students to see and or comment on each other's work. So there's a lot of control.
And also you can set up a notification. So if someone makes a comment, I'll get an email and then I can go in and read what that comment is. Sometimes I forget about the platform and I get an email. And so I go, I get the notification, I go in and look at it from there. So that way I'm not leaving students waiting for my feedback. I can get that email and go straight in and give them a response. So that's another nice perk.
Thanks so much. Are there any other questions about how Flipgrid works? Okay, we have another one. If you create a group, is that like your class? If so, do you create each assignment within the class? If that's how it is done, is it at all confusing for students to find the right assignment?
I typically create a group, and for that specific classroom, it could be ASL level 1. I'll create that group and then I will make a topic. And typically in week 1, we'll do this, and week 2, we do this, and week 3. That way the students will know exactly where to start for week 1, because it will be under the description. It will say, please introduce yourself. And then they can go to week 2 where it says, please tell me your favorite color. And so I typically sign that in complete sentences, and then they can move from that to week 3 and so forth. Like, your favorite activity is what? And so I do it in ASL format, and then they keep moving on from there. I also create another group for ASL level 2, for example, and their students will not be able to see anything outside of that because they have different links. So I send them the correct link for their class. And with that, they won't be able to see any of the information that pertains to the other classes.
Thank you. And we had someone comment that my groups are my classes, and no, it is not confusing for the students. Another question, can Flipgrid be embedded into Canvas, or do students need to go into the Flipgrid website? If they have to go into the Flipgrid website, do they have to sign in with a password?
So the answer is yes, it is embedded in Canvas. And then from there, they have to create an account, and they would use their CU account for that.
Thank you. So I think we have a few more minutes to go back to some questions that were posted about Nearpod. So I'm going to, hopefully I can find that quickly in the chat. So these questions are for Rocío. And the first one we have is, how long do you spend during your PowerPoints into interactive activities in Nearpod? So what is the creation time, transforming it from PowerPoint into interactive activities?
If you already have the presentation, it doesn't take more than 10 minutes total. Maybe you want to move some of the slides to reorganize them a little bit. For example, if I wanted to work on a fill in the blank activity, before that, I will give them, this is how it looks like, and this is the actual activity. So that takes a little bit more, but total no more than 10 or 15 minutes. If you wanna transform a slide into drawing activity, that takes seconds. You just click in there and it's automatic.
Wonderful. And when students type into an activity, does one student's engagements overlap with the other student's engagement? For example, in the comic strip activity?
No, it does not, because they only see their Nearpod. So it's for me that I can see all what they are doing, but for them, it just looks like a slide just with their work. So unless I share them, I can share all of them or some of whatever I choose, I can share them with the whole class, but then it will appear as I show you, like one after another. They are just working on their own work.
Great. And how do you see student activities or answers while in the class time? Is there another window you're in to see their activities?
No, you're working on the Nearpod. That's the great thing about using Nearpod, that you don't need anything else. It's just the Nearpod and the Zoom. That's it. and all what is happening on the Nearpod, you get immediate feedback. You can see it. So what you see, it's a little bit different from what they see. For them, it's just an individual presentation, but for you, it would be like walking around the classroom and get the chance to see what they are writing on paper. You will have that on your screen.
Thank you so much. So we are at the end. Does anyone else have any questions for Audra or Rocío about these two amazing tools? I love that they're either completely free or there is a free option that is totally usable. This makes it easy to implement, and I love that they look so easy to use. I know that we have a student here who's been on the end of Nearpod. I don't know if they want to share their experience about what it has been like for using Nearpod.
Is that me? Yeah, so I'm taking the Spanish class from Professora Rubio, and yeah, it's been great. We use breakout rooms all the time, and in the breakout, we go to the Nearpod, and you're with a partner, and you work on an activity together. And so I teach geology classes at CU, and breakout rooms are often a challenge because the students can't see the Zoom window when they go to the breakout, and then they have to kind of remember what the instructions were. And with Nearpod, it's right there. And I kind of like her comment about gamification of the material, because with the breakout, it's good for them to have a very concrete activity to do. So I think it's been really effective and really efficient. Thank
you so much, Anne, for that feedback. And I'll say from being in Audra's class for ASL, I really enjoyed Flipgrid, being able to have that time to practice on my own. One of the things that I love the most about Flipgrid is that you can re-record your video. So if you messed up the first time, you can re-record it ad nauseum as many times as you want. And I think for our students who have a lot of anxiety about language learning, this can be really beneficial for them to know that they have the opportunity to practice and change their answers. We have another question in the chat. How long are the synchronous sessions you're using Nearpod in? So I think the question is, how long are the class periods?
Yeah. My ALTEC classes are an hour and 15 minutes. In other institutions, 50 minutes, and the other one is 2 hours and a half. No, 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Thank you so much. I want to thank our presenters, Audra and Rocío, for this engaging presentation today. I know I am itching to get into these tools and see how we can apply them more thoroughly at our institution. I want to thank all of our participants for engaging with us, for being here. This is a mark that you are excited about technology and you are looking for ways to better engage your learners in your classroom. I'd like to invite all of you to attend our next workshop on March 14th, which is on collaboration, transparency, accessibility, and is talking about how to radically rethink the classroom and our roles within it. This is a topic about social justice, and it has a case study that's being done at Davidson College. So I invite you all to join us for that presentation as well. And I'm also going to drop a link in the chat to complete a feedback survey. We'd love to hear what you think so that we can improve future workshops that we may hold. So I will include a few links in the chat right now, the last of which is our feedback survey. And the other ones that are above that are links to our website, links to subscribe to our newsletter, and a link to upcoming workshops. And the last one is our feedback survey. It would be great if you can take just 2 minutes to fill that out and let us know what you think so that we can do an amazing job continuing. Thank you all so much, and we hope you have a great rest of your week.